Hi everyone, and welcome along to our July podcast partner update. I'm Chantal Broderick, and today I'm joined by the group CEO of MyZone, Dave Wright. Welcome along, Dave.
Hey Chantal, it's great to be chatting to you again.
It is really great to catch up with you midway through or just past the halfway mark of 2021. And today we're going to be having a bit of an update from MyZone, and let's kick things off by having a chat about this little baby that I've got in my hands, the MZ Switch. Now, for anyone that isn't familiar with the Switch, and perhaps they are familiar with the MZ3, tell us, what is the difference? How is it different to the MZ3?
So the MZ3, Chantal, and all was a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
What we decided to do is effectively make the world's first interchangeable heart rate monitor. So it can be worn on the chest through EKG, which is the electrocardiograph, or through PPG and worn on the wrist, which is photoplasmography, where it shines a light through and picks up the pulse and the blood running through your veins. So that's the main sort of like difference. It's the world's first interchangeable heart rate monitor.
So you just gave us a really interesting insight right then, because I know anyone that has been using MyZone for a while will probably automatically associate MyZone and the chest strap, right? We've used this for years and years. And let's be fair, MyZone wasn't always the biggest supporter of the wrist strap, but you've just told us why now we can have this interchangeable system. So talk to us about the accuracy of that wrist strap.
Yeah, look, we've not been a fan of PPG or the light showing through the wrist, for the pure reason that what happens is blood flushes through your veins and it distorts the reading. So 90% of activity done in the gym, where there is a regular, non-rhythmical movement of the wrist, it will give you a wrong reading. Okay, so that's not changed. So technology hasn't changed, physiology hasn't changed. The one thing that we've changed, certainly since lockdown, is not everyone has been training within the gym. And so what we've found is that, people have been running outside, cycling outside. And so when there is a repeatable, predictable movement, PPG, as it would with, other optical devices, can work. Okay. And they do work. But what we decided to do was have a whole picture. So people can actually have that choice of the different modalities of exercises that they do to make sure that the comfort, and also I will add the other one is you can now swim with it. Mm-hmm. So you can swim with it on the wrist, because it can actually get, because those people that tried to swim with it on the chest with the MZ3, they'll find that it, although it's waterproof, it would slip down to your ankles and the likes.
Makes it hard to get your heart rate there.
It does, certainly does.
Well, talking about exercising outdoors, so I was just saying to you, I'm living these days in the Sunshine Coast, and certainly during lockdown and this year in particular, I have been changing up the exercise. So sometimes it's in the gym, sometimes it's outdoors. I have taken to wearing the wrist strap a lot because it is so convenient. I find it super comfortable when I'm running, doesn't move around. And accuracy wise, I always draw up my app straight away and I can see what I've done and it feels like that's what I've done. And we've got the little flashing light. I don't know if you guys can see that right now. I think you just saw that when you're turning on the MZ Switch as well, when you're wearing that on your wrist. So I've got to say, huge fan over here in the Sunshine Coast, Australia. And I've been telling everyone about it. I've got my husband wearing it as well. So tell us, how are sales going?
So, I mean, the sales are off the charts. I think it's, despite the fact that we've had a 15-month and continuing pandemic, it's been, dare I say, for a bit of a ray of sunshine, so to speak, as something new. Look, we've taken, it's taken us over 12, 15 months to actually develop and get the product right. We started developing it back in January 2020. Mm-hmm. And we sort of like, and it was a big decision for us to sort of like to really go and say, okay, how can we make the comfort, the convenience, the swimming, how can we make that without us losing the integrity of the accuracy of the data? And we test and have continued to test chest versus wrist versus forearm versus leg, all the different places where you can. And the one thing that we've found is that, which is not unexpected, is that it purely down to the modality of the exercise. If you squeeze kettlebells, if you're doing a boxing session and the likes, you can't wear it on your wrist or your forearm. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be as accurate. And that's the same with the switch. It's the same with any device. So the hardest thing that we have, Chantal, is to try and educate the operators and also the end users to sort of like go, okay, understand the modality of the exercise. If you're playing tennis, I played tennis on Wednesday, and I had it on my left wrist. So I had my switch on my left wrist because I know I've tested it. It doesn't go on your gripping, holding the racket wrist. But it's more comfortable than necessarily wearing it on the chest. And it depends if you're going for a walk with the family, or if you're going to go for a bike ride, then it works just, butting it on the chest, pressing the button, and you're away. But if you're going to get in doing a functional training session, if you're going to go in some lifts and brick, always stick with the chest. So it is a matter of education and weighing up that sort of like comfort versus the use case.
Yep, and as I said, the comfort, like for me, it's definitely played a big factor, and the convenience as well. So a little while ago when I caught up with Emma, we had a brief chat about MZ Remote, but I know that not everyone is going to be familiar with MZ Remote. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about exactly what it is and what the difference is between MZ Remote and MZ Remote Plus?
Yeah. So when lockdown kicked in, what we realized is that a lot of people were training from home. So a lot of people were exercising from home. And we've always said with MyZone is that you can use MyZone to stay connected with your members, whether they're within the four walls or outside. And we've got data to prove that not everyone just trains solely 100% within the four walls of the facility. It's just human nature. So what we decided to do is when lockdown kicked in, we were like, okay, so many people are trying to stay connected with their members. They've got a device that they can see how hard they're working. And I mean, obviously when we were all trying to work out what the best thing to do is, when you're trying to do Zoom cycle classes and you say, hold up your phone and show me how hard you're working and all this. What we decided to do is we decided to focus our development on creating a system so that it's sort of like everyone could be remote, but all their tiles appear on one screen. So that therefore they, the operator, the instructor can effectively bring everyone together and training together so that they can coach by color and see the intensities and the effort levels, integrating that with Zoom. So we created MZ Remote, which was, and I'm going to say, I don't mind, is like a Peloton style offering for operators to be able to deliver their own classes to their masses, integrated with Zoom on a one-click straight through, and so that everyone can train together. MZ Remote Plus. So we did that, and that there is a service that operators have been using around the world. So if you want to do run clubs and all this, you can do it from your home. MZ Remote Plus, when we got to the second lockdown, and what we realized, Chantal, was a lot of operators have had so much to handle themselves, and so we had so many operators sort of like say, "Oh, this is fantastic, but we just." If we go into the facility to try and do the videoing, we get charged rent, and we don't, we can't, in the UK, we couldn't get our staff working if they were on furlough because you weren't allowed to. So they said, can you please just offer that for us? So we did. And so what we did is we did live stream classes. We've got about 700 pre-recorded classes as well. And we selected 168 on the hour, every hour, integrated with about 40 live stream of our coaches streaming their sessions and being able to coach on the hour, every hour. Okay. So it's like a live session, and that there is a premium offering that will be charged for, but during lockdown, we've made that free because we want to help operators just to get through the bloody lockdown. So the MZ Remote, it's Remote Plus, shall I say, is 168 classes, so any time of the day you can jump on and you could be training with people from around the world. And it's live training with people around the world with pre-recorded. And we've made it so that an operator can interchange and say, oh, do you know what? Chantal takes an absolute cracking cycling class of a 5:30 of a Thursday. Let's pull out the MyZone MZ Remote pre-recorded session, and then let's slot Chantal's session in there. So it effectively brings the world, generic classes integrated with the localism of the operator as well.
That's amazing. So members get to experience some instructors from all across the world, some different experiences, different accents as well. That sounds incredibly exciting. So if one of our operators right now is watching this and they want to know more, I assume that they just need to reach out to their local account manager wherever they are in the world. Is that right, Dave?
That's right, Chantal. And so, obviously we were just talking beforehand, Australia's sort of like gone into a further lockdown. It's just a phenomenal opportunity to speak to the local account manager and say, can you please switch that on? So that therefore the whole, if it's locked down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, every single one of your members has got access to classes and they can be training together, do a Saturday morning killer cardio club. We've had 150 to 180 people on the screen, all going through the greens and yellows together. There is nothing more engaging on a remote perspective. And it's now the way that we've done it as well. Mm-hmm. The way that we've set it up is that the coach, everyone can see everyone's tile, so everyone can see everyone's tile, and it just pops up into the app where they can share it and beam it up to a TV. The instructor can see the participants if they want to. So if the participant wants to turn on their camera, they can. But when they turn on their camera, the only person that can see them is the instructor.
Right.
Okay. So as we all know, that there's different thoughts out on there. The one thing that we had in all the research with my own gyms and the likes is, not everyone wanted, if they wanted to have a workout, they didn't want everyone seen into their lounge room. It's a bit different if you go down to the gym, but some people they're like, okay, do you know what? I just rather see what Kelsey's doing. She can, or if I'm doing kettlebell swings, I can turn my camera on so that she can see the form.
Yep.
And only her can see the form. But I can see everyone's effort levels, and that there is, it's no one in the world's ever done that in that degree, and it's incredibly motivating. It's a great way to train.
I was just about to say, I imagine that really enhances that sense of community, even though they might not necessarily be in the same physical location, but you have that motivation and that community and that camaraderie that's associated with the effort that's going into whatever that class or that activity is that you're doing.
And we are just releasing in the next week, so it's currently in test flight. So you might have 80 people on your screen. You can press one button and it will filter it to just your connections on the screen.
Oh, cool.
So which is incredibly engaging to say, Chantal's on there. Oh, I'm training with my friends. But Chantal, this is, I think as well, this is also a massive opportunity as a retention tool when, even if you are reopening, so when clubs do reopen and it's a value proposition out there to sit there and say, okay, we at the facility we've got our classes here and nothing is going to compete with in-club face-to-face. We know that and no one would say any different, but this is probably the second best thing. So as a retention tool, to be able to sit there and say, whether you add it onto your membership or as a bolt-on, or you basically say, with us at, Chantal Fitness, you've actually, we've got you covered. And, we're supporting you. If you want to work out at 3 o'clock in the morning, we've got a session for you. It might be a live stream session and motivating session, or even during the time, if you want to do a cardio session at 5:30, you can sort of like sit there and go, hey guys, just pop up your app and you are now training with people around the world. So it's quite motivating. And that there as a value proposition, as a competitive advantage, and also fundamentally as a retention tool, I think is paramount.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Dave, I mean, we were just talking about it here in Australia. We've seen some of our states, Victoria in particular, who have gone in and out of lockdown and in and out of shutdowns. And what a great way this is to stay connected with those members and give them that reassurance that you're there. They need to continue to stay active, continue to exercise. And when the doors do reopen, come on back in. But you've stayed connected during that uncertainty of lockdowns wherever, and I'm sure it's different everywhere in the world. But what a great way to stay connected during those times.
I think it's obviously the Peloton style, the beach body, incredible. Nike. If you just need to look at Nike training up, it's just the production level that is just off the charts. We know that. Now, we've got professional content in there, but it's nowhere near as engaging if an operator was to just slip out the odd class with, Jake down at the gym. This is Jake, and Jake's the one that's doing the coaching. So you're localizing it, and it's real. And I think that's what a lot of operators have appreciated with the MZ Remote Plus that we've delivered for them, is that it's real. It's a real instructor who is delivering a session. But operators, they can easily either use what we've already got there, or they could slot out with their own. So you're sort of like combining, the choices. And we all know that our members love our personalities. They love, the fact that, that's Chantal from the club. I want to follow Chantal from the club, and that's the big thing with that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love the idea of localizing that content or dropping in those little gold nuggets of your instructors. That's awesome. So Dave, we've kind of touched slightly on the lockdown situation. Obviously, everyone around the world's in quite a different place at the moment. We were just talking about the UK briefly. So in your opinion, what do you think the main issues are that our industry faces now in 2021 and even post-COVID? If I don't know if we can even say post-COVID, because it doesn't feel too real at the moment here in Australia. But yeah, what sort of are those main issues that you think we're facing as an industry?
Look, I think people resource, believe it or not, people resource is a real big struggle for the industry. Certainly, I mean, what we've seen in Europe, where a lot of people staff have been furloughed, so they've been paid a considerable amount of money to sit at home and then continue to earn self-employed personal trainers and the likes. I think, and this is the same in hospitality, it's the same in the retail, or certainly in the leisure sector, is trying to get those people back. Now, arguably, does it mean that there is a issue to look at the pay gap? Does it, are we as an industry paying enough? And, so I think, that's one thing that we sort of like need to look at, is basically saying, should we be paying more for our instructors? And I know certainly a lot of the gyms that I've spoken to around the world, some of their rock star instructors have gone, hang on a minute, I could earn a killing from the Sunshine, the Sunshine Coast or whatever, from home, literally delivering sessions around the world. And so I think, but I also think that might be a little bit short-lived. And I think when the world gets back to normal, people are going to need people, but I think they'll also need engaging people. And, we've always said that, as an industry, we have to sort of like look at ourselves and what can we do to engage. I mean, an example I always use is that the 2012 Olympics in London was the largest display of physical activity, sport and physical activity ever in the UK collectively. Yet the people that did the cheering and the welcoming were trained by McDonald's. So 75,000 McDonald's workers to welcome, and I sit there and go, why couldn't we have as an industry gone out to all the instructors around the world and say, okay, this is how you treat people, this is how you welcome people. And one of the big takeaways from the London 2012 Olympics was how welcome everyone felt. Mm-hmm. Yet we used McDonald's to do that because they did it right. Wow. So I think as a learning experience, we as an industry really need to up our game on what makes that member engagement just so much more, much more, so to speak.
Yeah. And what about if we have a look at post-COVID from a MyZone perspective specifically? Is there anything that MyZone are doing now to prepare for what comes next?
Yeah, so like with the switch has been absolutely, and the MZ remote has been well received. What we are now absolutely deep diving into is our metrics. Mm-hmm. Is so our dashboards, our game mechanics, so that when we get out of the lockdown, we can really start focusing and helping operators by basically saying, okay, Mr. Operator, did you know that if someone goes from 1,500 MEPs a month, 1,500 down to 400, then 200, they're going to cancel their membership. So if we can jump on that and jump on that, behavior analytics and say, now's the time to get them back in, to put a challenge in place, to really sort of like use nudge theory to, and also to educate the operators to say, hey, you've got someone here that, they might be doing the same amount of swipes of their membership, but their whole physical activity, passion is dropping because we can see it for you and we can present that for you. Because MyZone's whole objective is to help people feel good about exercise so that they stick to exercise, and that's the whole that exercise adherence, that retention is a real focus. So we've sort of like, of course we've got the sports bras and the t-shirts that integrate with the switch that you can button on and the likes. But our big play, now that the switch is launched, is really deep diving into the data and the analytics so that we can actually help increase and nudge people to stay exercising further.
Well, Dave, I'm sure all of our owner and operators that are watching this today would put their hands up to get that sort of information, to understand that behaviour of their members, and what a great way to do it, to work with a team from MyZone. So before we wrap things up today, are there any final messages that you want to leave with the FBP family?
Well, look, first and foremost, hey, well done for continuing providing that information around the world that you guys, you and JT do. It's terrific. In regards to data, I was going to touch on one point about that, is that what we found prior to lockdown, 65 to 70% of all workouts were done within a facility with the MyZone. Okay. Obviously it dropped down to about 2% during the March of last year. We're still sitting at about 40 to 42% within a facility.
Is that global? Is that global, Dave?
Global. Yep. Global. Yeah. So global across the whole, 84 countries and, 8,000 different facilities and millions of users. We've found that people are still not training back into the gym. So as much as they were pre-pandemic.
Yep.
And that's a pretty deep insight in regards to that pre and post pandemic training sort of like nature.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's fascinating to be able to view that data, and I guess as we were saying, with so many countries still kind of some getting back to normal, but so many still going in and out of lockdown, and it's interesting to hear that data that you've just shared with us. So look, it's always a pleasure to catch up. I want to thank you so much for jumping on and giving us an update. I don't need to tell you, I say it every time, massive fan, just MyZone addict through and through. And I think I can actually say that on behalf of all of the FBP team. I've got to say, I'm the person that will go back home, even if it's 20 minutes, to turn around and get my MyZone if I don't put it in my bag. So no, huge fan. And for
MEPS, it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if it doesn't show up, no, it didn't happen. So no, but for all of our FBP family that are watching right now, if you have any questions about the chat that Dave and I had today, if you want to talk about the MZ Switch, if you want to talk about MZ Remote or Remote Plus, please make sure that you reach out to your account manager in your local area and have a chat about how you can work with them to make sure that you're staying connected with your members and, bring them back once COVID moves on, as much as it's going to move on. So Dave, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's great to chat to you again.